Hello, I'm Paul Innes, Professor of Shakespeare Studies, and welcome to my channel Shakespeare for All. Today we'll be talking about Othello. This is one of 3 videos in the play dealing with characterisation, plot and context, and in this episode we'll be talking about the characters. Now at the end of the videos I offer some study tips together with a list of keywords in case you're using the play for assessment purposes. I make use of the MIT online text. It's easily available, it's accessible, supplemented with the Arden 3 edition. An edition like this, a scholarly edition with supporting material, notes, introduction, appendices, that sort of stuff is fine. It's useful if you need it for assessment purposes. There are 3 main characters in this play, as well as some secondary ones and then lots of minor ones. We won't talk about the minor ones. The main character, after whom the play is named, is Othello as protagonist, main character. Second one is Iago, the antagonist, the opposition, the person who causes obstacles and trouble for the main character. The third main figure is Desdemona. She is the woman that Othello's married. She's the lynchpin character, if you like. I can't think of another term for this. She's the person on whom the plot turns. The play is all about definitions of her. There's also 3 kind of second level characters, if you like, secondary characters. Cassio is Othello's lieutenant, second in command in the army, effectively. Emilia is Iago's wife. She's a gentlewoman in service. She works for Desdemona. And there's another little guy called Roderigo who I'm not going to really go into much detail about. I'm not going to describe him in too much detail because he's more a plot function. He's a kind of useless, genuine sort of little nobleman, very trusting. He's been wanting to marry Desdemona, and Iago, who works for Othello in the army, has said to him, "I'll get you what you want," while basically fleecing him of all his cash. He says, "Keep giving me money and I'll do this and I'll do that." Basically just spends it. So Roderigo is important for the plot as a function, but as a character he's actually a bit of a cipher, so we won't look at him in too much detail. Now before we begin properly, I'd like to say hello to my students. I don't do this often enough, so I thought I'd do it properly this time. They're studying Othello this semester as part of my standard Shakespeare module. And also, I found out through them and from teachers in secondary schools who've been asking me to go along and talk about Shakespeare, that Othello is a bit of a staple play for study in the English A-levels. So it's a bit of a happy coincidence. It means I can talk to 2 different groups of people about the same play and we can make use of some of the same material. So we'll start with Othello as the main character, the protagonist. And I'd like you to think of his character as having 3 parts at different points in the play. He starts off early in the play, this is part 1, if you like, Othello part 1, when he's in control, or at least he seems to be while he's still in Venice. The play moves to Cyprus. Iago starts manipulating him and he loses it completely. He loses control, he loses the plot, he descends into jealous madness, all the rest of it. So he's completely out of it. His language changes totally. And then at the very, very end of the play, when he's killed Desdemona and he's realised that he was wrong all along and that Iago just fed him a pack of lies, he reasserts control, and you can see this in the poetry that he speaks. It's very eloquent again, as it was at the beginning of the play, and then he kills himself. So in terms of his overall character arc, if you want to use that language, he moves in a kind of circle. He's in control, he loses it, and then he's back in control again. And what we'll do is we'll look at a passage from the play for each stage of the role. You can find plenty of these. I've just picked out some classic examples. So on the screen you'll see a passage from quite early in the play. It's from Act 1, Scene 3. It's when Othello is in front of the High Council of Venice. They've convened because there's a war on with the Turks, that's why they need him, he's the general. He has, however, caused some disruption in the state because he's married Desdemona, secretly. She's the heiress of a major Venetian family. She's the only daughter of Signor Brabantio. Brabantio is not happy about this because he cannot conceive of the fact that his daughter has actually done what she wants. How dare she, you know? She's actually gone and married somebody for love. And because Brabantio's racist, he's hacked off because it's a black guy, so he's completely incensed and he makes up all sorts of accusations. He can't understand why Desdemona would be attracted to Othello, and he actually accuses him of witchcraft and all sorts of stupid stuff. And this is what Othello says Watch for the language here. It's very eloquent. It's a good word for it. Rhetorically, this is very carefully constructed. He starts off by saying, most potent, grave and reverend seniors, and so on and so forth. And then he says, rude am I in my speech. He's anything but rude. That means crude, kind of using low language. This is sophisticated rhetoric. It's a good posture. He's saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't speak, as he goes on to speak beautifully. He says, little blessed with the soft phrase of peace. For since these arms of mine had 7 years' pith, till now some 9 moons wasted, they've used their dearest action in the tented field. So he's beautifully saying, I'm not very good at speaking. Ever since I was a lad, ever since I was 7 years old, apart from the last roughly 9 months because I've been in Venice, I've been fighting people. You know, that's what I do. I'm not a good speaker, he says, speaking very well indeed. Little of this great world can I speak, more than pertains to feats of broil and battle, and therefore little shall I grace my cause in speaking for myself. He's self-deprecating, he's saying, you know, oh, I'm going to do my best here, but I'm not very good at it, as he's being very good at it. Yet by your gracious patience, I will a round unvarnished tale deliver of my whole course of love. That's a very famous line, a round unvarnished tale, as he produces a very smoothly varnished tale. It says, looking at Brabantio, what drugs, what charms, what conjuration, and what mighty magic, for such proceeding I am charged withal, I won his daughter. This is a man who's in control, he's in command, he holds the stage, he holds the centre of the stage. Compare this with just one of the passages from the moments when he loses it because of his manipulation by Iago. This is from Act 4, Scene 1. Listen to this. You could hardly believe this is the same guy. Lie with her. Lie on her. We say lie on her when they belie her. Lie with her. That's fulsome. Handkerchief. Confessions. Handkerchief. Now, of course, I'm acting this really badly. To confess and be hanged for his labour. First to be hanged and then to confess. Is completely mad. He's lost it completely. You can't be hanged for something and then confess the crime because you're dead, you know. His mind is just gone. His syntax is gone. He can't even string a sentence together properly. I tremble at it. Nature would invest herself in such shadowing passion without some instruction. Nobody knows what that even means. It is not words that shake me thus. Pish, noses, ears and lips. Is it possible? Confess. Handkerchief, oh devil, falls in a trance. Now this is not the same person. There's a massive contradiction in his character. One minute he's totally in control, the next minute he's totally lost it. This is what happens at the very end, just before he kills himself, when he reattains control. He's talking to the gathered Venetian and kind of dignitaries of Cyprus, who've all ended up in his bedroom because of the commotion where he's just killed his wife. He says, soft you, a word or two before you go. I have done the state some service, and they know it, no more of that. I pray you in your letters, when you shall these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am, nothing extenuate, nor set down aught in malice. Then must you speak of one that loved not wisely, but too well. That's a very famous quotation as well. That's the line you want to refer to or put into an essay or an exam if you can remember it. Of one not easily jealous, but being wrought, perplexed in the extreme. He goes on a bit and then he kills himself. So he's in control of his language. His language use reflects, you could say, the state of his mind. Now, this creates an issue because he's a very contradictory character. For modern actors, there's a serious problem here. We're taught to value psychological coherence above all else, as if these are real people, individuals. But what you have here is a need to play very powerfully someone who's in control and be equally good at playing someone who goes mad and then becomes in control again. So there are inconsistencies in the character, in the characterization. That's very common in the drama of this period, but it presents a problem for modern interpretation. Now what we'll do is we'll look at Iago, the antagonist. And the 3 stages in his character are all to do with manipulation. He manipulates Rodrigo, as I said earlier. He manipulates us. He manipulates the audience. And he manipulates Othello. Now, the role of Iago is a set of characteristics derived from the so-called Machiavellian type, stock stage stereotype based on English assumptions from the Italian political theorist Machiavelli. guy who wrote The Prince. So it's based on a kind of semi-misunderstanding of what Machiavelli is up to. The important thing is the stage figure, and Iago is probably the best example of this, is deeply cynical, has to use his wits to get anywhere in the world to rise above his station, and will lie, cheat, steal and do as much damage as he possibly can, quite cheerfully and cynically, to everyone around him to get what he wants. He's the utter manipulator. Now, Iago gives 3 sets of motivations for why he does what he does, and every single one of them is a useless excuse. He's just the bad guy. As with Othello, he raises questions about psychological coherence. His motivation is almost non-existent. He's a type. And what we'll do is we'll look at a passage from the play for each stage of the role. This is the first one. This is from just after what we looked at with Othello in the council chambers. Basically, everyone leaves the stage except for Roderigo and Iago. And Roderigo's going, oh, I've lost it, I can't do this. I'm going to go and drown myself. You know, Desdemona's married to this guy, there's nothing I can do. They're off to the war. And Iago is slightly worried because he's been living off the guy's money. So he wants him to stay. He says, it's all right, we'll manage it. Okay? This isn't prose, so it signifies plotting. And watch the language he comes out with. Iago will say anything to anyone to get what he wants. He's utterly racist and totally misogynistic. And this is the language he uses. These Moors are changeable in their wills. He's basically saying, these black guys just change their mind all the time. It's astonishing. Fill thy purse with money. He keeps saying that, put money in thy purse, because he's living off the guy's wealth, and Roderigo is being completely fooled. He continues, the food that to him, to Othello, the food that to him now is as luscious as locusts, shall be to him shortly as bitter as colla quintada. She must change for youth. When she is sated with his body, she will find the error of her choice. She must have changed. She must. Therefore put money in thy purse. So he's saying, you know, Othello's going to change his mind because he's a black guy. She's going to change her mind because she's a young woman. It's completely racist and misogynistic. But the point is, he's using these words. It's not even clear if he actually believes it himself. He's using these words to construct an argument he knows Roderigo will want to hear so that he can manipulate the guy. That's what he's up to. It's a very good example. The second one is from almost immediately after what we've just looked at, when he turns to the audience. Iago is on stage on his own now. Roderigo's toddled off to get ready to go to Cyprus. And Iago turns to us and manipulates us. Now, Iago uses the soliloquy in order to do this. In fact, you could go so far as to say that the soliloquy form becomes identified with the Machiavel role in this play. Othello tries to do it later and fails miserably because he's just not very good at it. It's not natural to him. Iago is consummate. Iago is manipulating us as much as manipulating anybody else on the stage. And we will look at this speech in some detail. Roderigo's gone off and he just turns to us and he says, thus do I ever make my fool my purse. He's quite open about it. He's just telling us the truth. He's telling us exactly what he thinks. For I mine own gained knowledge should profane if I would time expend with such a snipe, but for my sport and profit. It's basically saying, I'm spending my time with this guy because I like it. I enjoy it. I'm sporting with him. Oh, and I'm profiting from it as well. So you get straight into what Iago is doing, and he's manipulating us. He starts thinking aloud. I hate the Moor, he says. And it is thought abroad that twixt my sheets he has done my office. I know not if it be true, but I, for mere suspicion in that kind, will do as if for surety. So he's giving us an excuse for why he wants to kill Othello. He's basically saying, I've heard a rumour that he's been seeing my wife behind my back. It's probably not true. It's just a rumour. But hey, you know, I need an excuse. That's the logic of the guy. Then he starts thinking, what am I going to do here? He holds me well. That's something that everybody says about Iago. They all call him honest. They're all wrong. The better shall my purpose work on him. Othello trusts me, so I'm already in there. How am I going to do it? And you can see him musing. It's almost as if he's thinking out loud and using us, the audience, as a sounding board. Cassio was a proper man. Let me see now. To get his place and to plume up my will and double knavery. How? He's actually asking us, how am I going to do it? Cassio's a nice, handsome guy. I want to replace him. I want his job. How am I going to do it? And then he says, let's see. After some time, to abuse Othello's ear that he is too familiar with his wife. He hath a person as a smooth disposed to be suspected, framed to make women false. He's basically saying Cassio is a nice, handsome guy, and he's a good guy as well. So there are ways that I can use this to my advantage. This is what he says about Othello. This is a really useful line. This is what Iago knows about Othello, despite what he says to everyone else. The Moor is of a free and open nature, that thinks men honest, that but seem to be so, and will as tenderly be led by the nose as asses are. He's basically saying Othello is naive. He will believe what people tell him. I mean, how thick can you be? Is basically the implication. For Iago, language is about manipulation. For Othello, it's about truth. Those are clashing worldviews. And then he goes, I have it. And these are famous lines as well. He's basically saying to the audience, right, I know what I'm going to do here. Thanks for listening. It is engendered, he says. Hell and night must bring this monstrous birth to the world's light. And off he goes. Now that's only one of many soliloquies that he speaks directly to us to tell us what he's going to do to people. So he's manipulating us as much as anyone else. This is an example, this is a third one for Iago when he starts to manipulate Othello. There are many of them. This is from Act 3, Scene 3. And he starts by talking rubbish. He talks about reputation, and Othello goes, what are you talking about? By this point, the audience doesn't even know what he's talking about. Iago says, good name in man and woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis something, nothing. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him and makes me poor indeed. By this point, you're going, what? But he's talking about reputation. That's crucial. Reputation is so important in this play. Othello's lost it. By heaven, I'll know thy thoughts. This is what Iago says. You cannot, if my heart were in your hand, nor shall not, while 'tis in my custody. He's actually saying to Othello, yes, there's a bit more behind this, but I'm not going to tell you. Othello's response, ha. That's what he says. No more rhetoric, no more beautiful poetry. You just get ha. And this is a set of famous lines that Iago comes up with. He dangles this in front of Othello. It's basically saying, I'm going to make you jealous, and there's no grounds for it, and I'm going to love every minute of it. Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on. It's a very famous line. You can hear the cynicism as he spits out the words. Monosyllabic. You've got alliteration. It's very, very famous. That cuckold lives in bliss, who certain of his fate loves not his wronger. But oh, what damned minutes tells he o'er who dotes, yet doubts, suspects, yet strongly loves. Othello's response, oh misery. Where did that come from? So Iago has already won, and that's just one example of what he does to Othello. There's some useful lines in there. Now what we'll do is we'll move on to Desdemona. I've called her a linchpin figure. Again, we'll look at 3 stages. This is slightly different though, because one of them is not her. What happens in the first part of Desdemona's characterization is nothing from her. Okay? Remember that, it's so important. She is defined in multiple different ways by practically everybody on the stage at different times before she even appears herself. So stage 1 of Desdemona's character is what she means to other people, especially men, especially her father. The word I use for this is slightly clumsy, but I can't think of another term. It's reportage. It doesn't just mean representation of something that's happened off stage or someone who's not on the stage yet. It's not just a passing comment. It's about something that is, and this is a useful phrase, symbolically central. What Desdemona means is discussed by so many different people that by the time she's due to come on the stage, the audience should be thinking, what's she actually like? This play is about definitions of Desdemona, actually, when you think about it. So that's the first stage. The second stage, and we'll look at some of the language again, how she defends herself before the council. And she's very much in control. And the third stage is when she's publicly defamed by her husband, later when she's in Cyprus. And Desdemona is a crucial figure because she's the sole heiress of a noble house. She draws attention from all of the men in the play because she acts independently and powerfully at the very beginning. Way before we see her, people are talking about what she's done. She's secretly married for love. She's chosen who she wants to marry. How dare she? That's the patriarchal attitude. But this in turn, as with Iago, as with Othello, creates an issue because of our assumption of the importance of psychological coherence as if these are real people. Because she acts very powerful at the beginning, and then at the end, she's submissive, wifely, and meek. It's hardly the same person. So you need an actor who's going to be good at both, as you need an actor who's going to be good at total control and total insanity with Othello. So all three of these major characters present serious issues in performance. You have to be very good to act these parts. So this is the first element of Desdemona's characterisation, and this is from her father. This is a very, very bold statement of patriarchy. This is nasty stuff. From the very beginning of the play, Iago and Roderigo have been shouting up at his windows saying, "Where's your daughter, old man?" Iago's run off because he doesn't want to be seen to be manipulating things. And Brabantio comes storming down the stairs and confronts Roderigo. "It is too true and evil, gone she is, and what's to come of my despised time is naught but bitterness." What? This is about me. It's got nothing to do with Desdemona. It's about what she has done reflecting on me. I'm the male patriarchal head of the household. It doesn't matter what Desdemona's done in and of itself. What matters is she has disrupted patriarchy. And that's basically what this is about me. The household is defined masculine and I'm the head of the household, so this is about me. That's basically what he's saying. "Now, Roderigo, where didst thou see her? O unhappy girl, with the moor sayest thou? Who would be a father? How didst thou know 'twas she? Oh, she deceives me past thought. She deceives me." Okay? It's all about me. Me. That's what he's doing. "What said she to you? Get more tapers. Raise all my kindred. Are they married, think you?" Roderigo's just been blasted with this verbiage. "Truly, I think they are." And this is what he says. "Oh heaven, how got she out? Has he been barring his doors at night so his daughter doesn't get out?" Probably yes, actually, thinking about it. "Oh treason of the blood." Now, you might think that's just one line among others, but that has specific social resonances in this period. She has literally, and I do mean this, literally committed treason to the blood of her family, the blood of her household, her father, right? Because she's done something unconscionable. She's done something she shouldn't do and actually done what she wanted for herself. You're not supposed to do that if you're a woman, especially if you're an heiress, especially if you're an aristocrat. "Fathers," he says, practically talking to the audience, "from hence trust not your daughters' minds by what you see them act." And this is where the racism comes in. He can't think of why she might be interested in a black guy like Othello. So he says, "Right, I need an excuse here. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. It must have been witchcraft. Yeah, that'll do. She's been bewitched." It's completely mad. "Is there not charms by which the property of youth and maidhood may be abused? Have you not read, Roderigo, of some such thing?" So this is the charge he levels against Othello. We've already seen Othello reacting to this in the council chambers, just going, yeah, these are the charms, I talked to her, mate. Utterly racist, but it's a very, very good example of the patriarchal position. That's what you want. That's what people assume is going to happen, and Desdemona destroys that. She disrupts it completely. Now, what happens when she appears finally and comes before the council in Act 1, Scene 3? We've already looked at Othello talking to the council. He tells them what happened. She then is brought in and they say to her, "Right, tell us what happened." And this is what she says. "My noble father, I do perceive here a divided duty. To you I am bound for life and education. My life and education both do learn me how to respect you. You are the lord of duty. I am hitherto your daughter, but he is my husband. And so much duty as my mother showed to you, preferring you before her father, so much I challenge that I may profess due to the moor my lord. Right? So she's in control, she's very, very powerful. She holds centre stage. She commands she commands the council, she commands the audience. That's Desdemona at the beginning of the play. Watch what happens later. This is from Act 4, Scene 1. Othello is on Cyprus. There are lots of dignitaries present, Venetians, local Cyprus people, the governor, all the rest of it, and this is a stage direction. He hits his wife in public, striking her. Devil, he says. I've not deserved this. Lodovico is the sort of leader of the deputation from Venice. My lord, this would not be believed in Venice. Though I should swear I saw it, 'tis very much. Make her amends, she weeps. O devil, devil, if that the earth could teem with women's tears, each drop she falls would prove a crocodile. It's basically saying it's crocodile tears, it's false. Out of my sight. Desdemona, I will not stay to offend you, and off she goes. Is this the same woman? What happened? There's an issue with characterisation here. It happens in Macbeth as well. Lady Macbeth is incredibly powerful at the beginning of the play, and then she's killed off stage when the plot no longer needs her. So what's happening here is Desdemona is required to become meek and passive and submissive and wifely because that's what the plot needs. Whether or not that's psychologically consistent, you can decide for yourselves. Now we'll look at the two characters I mentioned earlier from the supporting cast. We won't look at Roderigo because, like I said, he's a bit of a plot function and we've already mentioned him a few times. First one I want to look at is Cassio. He's Othello's second in command. He's a nice guy and is trusting, and the interaction between him and Desdemona is what Iago uses to drive Othello nuts. Basically, to cut a long story short, Cassio can't hold his drink. Iago deliberately gets him drunk, gets him into a situation where he starts to fight people, and Othello dismisses him from the army. Cassio wants his job back, so he's going to Desdemona to get it. This is one of the things he says to Iago. Watch the language here. Cassio's on stage, very briefly on his own. Iago comes in. In happy time, Iago. You've not been abed then? Why no, the day had broke before we parted. I've made bold, Iago, to send in to your wife. My suit to her is that she will to virtuous Desdemona procure me some access. He's basically saying, I hope you don't mind, but I know your wife works for Desdemona, so I've asked if she can help, because the only way that I can think of really get my job back is to go through Desdemona and try to get her to, persuade her husband that I deserve my job back. It was a mistake, okay? That's basically what he's saying. Watch what Iago does. Oh, yeah, fine. It's exactly what he does to Roderigo. It's exactly what he does to the audience. It's exactly what he does to Othello. Yeah, I'll help. I'll send her to you presently, and I'll devise a mean to draw the moor out of the way, that your converse and business may be more free. I humbly thank you for it, and off Iago goes. It's not intended to do any of this. This is what poor old Cassio says. I never knew a Florentine more kind and honest. Now, there are layers of irony there. Yeah, it's so difficult. There are so many of them. We know Cassio's from Florence. We know that paradoxically he's a good guy. He's fine and upstanding because Florence is a city of Machiavelli. Okay? We don't know what Iago's origin is. Some people say Spanish because of his name. He's probably Italian. He may be Florentine himself. But to say on the English stage that Florentines are kind and honest is completely mad. Right? They're anything but. Cassio's got it wrong. Everybody thinks Iago's honest and he's one of them. Good example. Now what we'll do is we'll look at Emilia. She works as Desdemona's main gentlewoman servant and she's married to Iago. She's rather more worldly than Desdemona. Probably because she's married to Iago. She shows extreme loyalty to her mistress, and this is what happens at the end of the play. People from Venice, people from Cyprus are all in the bedroom. Desdemona's lying dead in the bed. Othello's standing there after being disarmed, effectively. And one of the Venetians says, "Fie, your sword upon a woman." Because notice the stage direction. Iago offers to stab Emilia. Right? He's prepared to kill his wife to stop the truth coming out. And Emilia says, she turns to Othello, "O thou dull Moor, that handkerchief thou speak'st of, I found it by fortune and did give my husband. For often with a solemn earnestness, more than indeed belonged to such a trifle, he begged of me to steal it." Iago says, villainous whore in front of all of the main dignitaries of Cyprus and the visitors from Venice, right? He's publicly shouting at her and calling her the worst possible thing a man can call his wife. Basically repeats what Othello did earlier. And Emilia is not going to shut up. She's too loyal and she knows this is her husband's fault. She says, she give it Cassio? No, alas, I found it and I did give it my husband. Iago, filth, thou liest. Emilia, by heaven, I do not. I do not, gentlemen, she says to Othello. Oh, murderous coxcomb, what should such a fool do with so good a woman? Othello, dawning realisation, finally gets it. Are there no stones in heaven but what serve for the thunder? And he turns to Iago and he goes, precious villain. Now, I would have him try to strangle the guy. And this is the stage direction. He runs at Iago. Iago, from behind, stabs Emilia and exits. Right? He actually backstabs his own wife and does a runner. I love Iago, he's a great character. So now what we'll do is some study tips. We'll conclude by suggesting ways in which you can draw all of this together and think about the three main characters in preparation for any assessments you might want to write on the play. 3 points about Othello as the main character. Point 1, he's what we call a liminal figure. It comes from the Latin limen or liminus, meaning threshold or doorway, a space between two rooms or two places, two zones, two areas. Othello is located somewhere in between Venice on the one hand and its great opponents, the Turks, on the other. The Venetians need him because he's a skilled warrior and general who knows the ways of the enemy. Second point, his cultural origin. He's Moorish. Now, it's not certain if that means he's from North Africa or possibly the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, but he's what we would call a man of colour. Presumably he's also Islamic because he's Moorish. This makes him doubly valuable to Venice because in cultural terms he's much closer to the Turkish enemy than they are, which is why he understands the way they wage war. Third point, what endears him to Desdemona is his masculine activity, his adventures as a man active in the world. However, because he's an outsider, he's not fully aware of the possibilities of Italian intrigue, and Iago takes advantage of this to destroy him. In other words, as a liminal figure, Othello is caught between two worlds, the military and the domestic, as well as between two cultures. So those are the three things to remember about him. He's a liminal figure, he's Moorish, and he's very active in the world as an outsider. We'll move on to Iago's antagonist, and again, to keep things simple, 3 main points. First one is that word honest. Everybody assumes he's honest, presumably because he successfully inhabits the social and military world of Venice without drawing too much attention to himself. As I said earlier, his motivation is at best cloudy. He gives 3 different reasons why he wants to destroy Othello. The point is, he's just the bad guy. He's the Machiavellian stage type. Just accept it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is his social rank. He's of the middling sort. He needs to work for a living. He doesn't own or have his own household. He needs a job, which is why he works in the army and why his wife, Emilia, works as a gentlewoman in service to Desdemona. So that's the second thing. First thing, he's honest. Second thing is his social rank. Third thing is how he uses language, how he manipulates people. Now, Othello naively believes that one's word is one's bond. Iago is the total opposite. As far as I'm concerned, words are tools that are available to me in the struggle to increase my social position, and I will lie, cheat and steal and murder and kill to get what I want, totally cheerfully cynical about it, and I'll talk to you as the audience and let you in on the secret. Brilliant character. Ironically, he's undone at the end of the play when Roderigo's diary scribbles happen to be discovered. It's almost as though Iago is so good at deception that the only way he can be found out is by chance. Same procedure for Desdemona's lynchpin, 3 main points. These follow on very logically from what we said earlier about her role. First of all, she's defined pretty much by all of the men in the play before she even turns up in different ways. This technique, which I've called reportage, draws attention to what she means, okay? Remember also, This is important. On Shakespeare's stage, she was played by a man because it's illegal for women to act. In other words, Desdemona, if you think about it in the abstract and slightly logical terms, Desdemona is a figure fundamentally concerned with masculine definitions of what it is to be a woman. Second thing, remember, she defies convention by choosing the man she wants and by marrying for love. She deceives her father in order to do so, and this lays bare a fundamental problem for patriarchy. What do you do when your only child and heiress is out of control? What happens to the social codes then, especially when she chooses an outsider like Othello? Third part, I've said this before, after the initial disruption that she causes by acting independently and powerfully, she becomes really boring. She's meek, submissive, things start to unravel in Cyprus, and she just goes, yeah, all right then, smother me. You know, question for you. Do you think this behaviour contradicts the strength she showed earlier? Having said that, do you think a Renaissance audience would have a problem with it? Would they worry as much as we do about the supposed importance of psychological coherence? So those are the three things to think about with her character. Now what we'll do is we'll finish with some keywords, terms which I've been using. These are critical terms. They will be useful to you. Hopefully, if you incorporate them into an assessment, it'll get you some more points. Shows you know what you're talking about. First one, obviously protagonist, main character, Othello. Sometimes there's more than one, not in this play. Second one is antagonist, the opposition, which is Iago. Now, Iago has more stage time and he has more lines than Othello. You might as well say the play's about Iago, except that it's a tragedy, so it has to be about the downfall of a major figure. The third thing which I've mentioned is a phrase which I came up with because I couldn't think of anything better, which is lynchpin character, which is Desdemona. She's the pivot on which the play turns. Everything in the play is about representations of Desdemona when you think about it. That's why Othello kills her. He gets it wrong though. Soliloquy, speech delivered directly to the audience by a character alone on stage. Iago does this all the time, as we've seen, in order to manipulate the audience. Othello tries to do it a couple of times. As I said earlier, it's almost as if the soliloquy is the technique of the Machiavel in the play, but because Othello's such a bad Machiavel and gets it wrong, he's not very good at it. Machiavel itself, term derived from English assumptions about the Italian political theorist Niccolo Machiavelli, who wrote The Prince. The Machiavel is a stock character on the English Renaissance stage, and Iago is a superb example of it, the ultimate cynical arch manipulator. Prose I've mentioned. These are speeches or conversation delivered in normal language, in other words, not poetry. Often in plays of the period, it's done by people of relatively low social class because they chat to each other, they're not nobles. In this play, it usually denotes some form of plotting. You see those multiple scenes when Iago is on stage alone with Roderigo manipulating him. They talk in prose because they're planning stuff. Reportage, this is another word I invented. It's slightly clumsy. It's not just about representation of something that's happening off stage or a person who's not there. It denotes something that is centrally symbolic. Symbolically central, that's a good phrase for you. Put that in an essay, hopefully you get more points. It's something that really, really matters. It's fundamental to the play. In this play, it's Desdemona. And finally, the liminal figure. This is Othello. Somewhere in a location between Venice and the Turks. He knows enough about the Venetians to be able to function as part of the society, but he's not sophisticated enough or knowledgeable enough in the sophisticated ways of Venetian society to be able to stop what Iago does to him. He's caught in the middle between different cultures. So if this is a play you're studying, especially if you're studying it for A-level, good luck. I hope you get on quite well. I hope if you've got any questions you can get in touch and ask them. If you want to know more, there are videos on the plot and context for Othello, so please remember to subscribe.